It is the year 2472, and the Earth has suffered a great calamity. Hundreds of years of popular culture have vanished. Without the sacred films and texts for guidance, civilization is devoid of anything cool. Then, 3 incubation chambers are unearthed, and from within, men from the time of the great blockbusters emerge. Now, through highly interesting conversations, they share invaluable insight about what once was. The movies, the shows, the comics, toys, and books. This is the Hyperspace.
Podcasting in the 25th century.
Welcome in, podcast pioneers, to the Hyperspace. Podcasting in the 25th century, the interweb's first and only podcast. My name's Matt.
I'm Jared.
I'm Mike.
And I am fatigued.
I find myself growing fatigued again.
I find myself growing fatigued, Doctor.
We're back. We're back to talk about part 2 of Fatigued.
Fatigue.
Yes, whatever you said.
Must be French.
So when last we left, we had talked about some of the things that we'd either dipped out on or, came back around to or what have you. But it all dealt with just needing a break, becoming tired. Was that your James T. Kirk bourbon there?
Nice. Oh, my. Wonder how
Straight
that tastes.
bourbon.
I didn't get very good reviews.
Well, it's probably, yeah, you're just buying the bottle, really. You got it for free.
I did. I'm a drunk customer on Uber.
That was, that's go check out our Uber Stories episode. We talk about that. No, so we're going to pick up where we left off. And, excuse me, I'm stifling a belch like Carrie Fisher. Goodness gracious.
It escaped.
It's like William Shatner and Carrie Fisher had a kid.
So I got to ask, we got these two 800-pound gorillas sitting in the room here. But before we get to those,
hey,
is there anything we didn't?
Speaking of 800-pound gorillas, Mike, you just saw the 800-pound gorilla in the theater. How was that?
Oh, it was fun. It's a fun movie. I think these movies surprise me how much money they're making, but I thought it's a blast. I mean, you could do worse. I think King Kong basically is a character like Caesar in Planet of the Apes. So no,
Like
it's fun.
At this point, you're saying that he's actually like a character.
Yeah, he is a character. He is a character. It's his movie.
These are fun movies. I mean, they're not like great cinema, but they're fun. They're fun movies to watch.
I think the director is very innovative with some of his shots. Like there's a shot at the beginning. I swear I was getting dizzy from the way he was moving the camera. It was very cool. It's fun. It's no Godzilla -1, but I think I saw someone compare the two as saying like -1 is like a fine, expensive meal, and Godzilla Kong is like a double cheeseburger with French fries.
I plan on taking the kids there next weekend and seeing it in 4DX. After my 4DX experience with Dune 2, I'm going to take all these little kids and have them bounce around in this movie.
Just see them pop up and down and bounce.
I'm going to see if I can have one of them fall out, just like be ejected. So that's my goal.
What? I had 2 when I left.
Yeah, I don't understand what happened.
This is a franchise that's been going on for, what?
10
years? 8 years now? 10 years?
10. 2014 was the Gareth Edwards Godzilla.
I mean, solid movies. Not great cinema again, but fun movies has been going. And although they're cheesy and they're a little outrageous, they're still a fun watch. I haven't been disappointed yet.
They're all held together by the show Monarch. That's the glue that holds the franchise together.
Yeah, I mean, that goes without saying.
Oh, it's the glue, all right.
I mean, there's Lost,
has
there's
a lot
Band of Brothers, there's Monarch, there's Masters of the Air.
Yeah. The only thing that Monarch has in common with glue is dead horses.
Mhm.
And in that, I mean, I'd rather watch a bunch of horses being killed than watch Monarch
Wow.
again. It started out so promising, and then it just crashed and burned. Fatigue. This is perhaps. I mean, this is maybe this could be an asterisk for me because while Mike really enjoys these films, I don't.
Really?
Never really liked him.
No, I didn't like. I saw the first Godzilla in theaters with Matt, I think.
Yeah, we saw it.
And I was like, well, that was okay. I'd like to see Godzilla in a Godzilla movie every once in a while. And, I thought the Kong Skull Island was pretty good. After that, I saw Godzilla versus Kong, and I thought it was okay. I couldn't tell you about anything about King of the Monsters. I know I watched it, but I couldn't tell you anything
I
about
really like King of Monsters. I thought King Monsters was like a great. Like, if you're a fan of Godzilla, I don't know why you wouldn't like King of Monsters because
Okay.
it like had everything.
Apparently, I'm just not a fan of anything.
He's a bad person.
Just a note, sourpuss.
Yeah, I guess. Takes one to know one, Mike.
Good one. Good one. I'm rubber your glue. What do you think of that?
Yeah. No, but when Monarch started, I was like, okay, if this is good, I'm gonna go back and give this series another
Yeah, you were
chance.
talking about giving it you were like really enthused about it after
I was like,
couple
okay. I was like, yeah, first couple episodes, yeah, it's a little slow, but it's good. But after, then I just stopped caring about everything.
Well,
Like
it just
was
started
boring.
I went into those
and
the characters who are about as interesting as
What
yeah,
a shame.
and I never even finished the series. I didn't watch the last episode, and it was like sort of was a cliffhanger too. And I was like, I don't care. I just don't care.
Well,
And
real quick, the thing I almost liked the last couple of episodes, but then they did something so it made me so mad because it was insulting. There's a scene where they're about to escape in this pod from the upside down world or the hollow earth. And Kurt Russell's like, something's like, oh no, I got to go out and fix something. So Kurt Russell gets out of the pod to go fix it. So he fixes it and he starts to run towards the pod. And then they cut away to Godzilla fighting this other monster for a few minutes. Okay, keep in mind, the thing he needs to fix is like just about 10 or 15 feet away from the pod. And they cut back and Kurt Russell can't make it to the pod on time. I'm like, he's right there. These monsters have been fighting for like 5 or 10 minutes.
He's old.
Not
His
that long.
His hips hurt.
He had plenty of time to get. It was so lame because they were just they were going for the the sacrifice. Except that he had plenty of time to make it. It's almost like he stopped to tie his shoe, and he saw some rocks he thought that were kind of interesting.
Did him not making it back make a big difference in them taking off?
Well, I was just so infuriated.
so they killed him off.
Yeah, he died.
Okay.
I'm
Spoiler.
disappointed because I wanted to watch the show because I love Kurt Russell, but after you guys start watching it and your reviews, I'm like, I'm not going to bother. I'm not going to take Jack Burton down the hole.
Yeah.
Well,
one show I'd like to talk about before too long is Masters of the Air.
A great show.
I think we should dedicate an episode to that. Thought it was quite good. Speaking of Apple Plus series, I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, I got Apple Plus for Monarch, and I stayed for the Masters of the Air.
I got Apple. That's good. That needs to be on their advertising slogan.
Come for the Monarch, stay for the Masters of the Air.
I was worried that, and we'll talk deep in the Masters of the Air when we do an episode on it, but I was worried that, and not that the Pacific was bad by any means, but it wasn't as good as Band of Brothers. And
to coin a phrase, it was a real pisser.
It was a pisser.
It wasn't. It's just not a.
It wasn't.
It's a tough watch.
It was a tough watch, and had its moments, but I was worried.
It's good. I mean, I think it gives you a real good perspective of what it was like.
It's a different kind of watch. I mean, I think Masters of the Air is very much like Band of Brothers, and that.
Yeah, but I think it sort of returned to the to the European theater.
Well, it also followed characters more closely than the Pacific. The Pacific put you all over the place. And
Yeah.
I
I think
just-
one
I-
thing I remember on the podcast, Mike talking about is like, he had shingles when he was watching the Pacific, and I was
And
like,
I
man,
binge watched it. It was I had shingles. David was a newborn. I wasn't allowed near him.
Right.
And then I was staying home I had shingles on my face. And I binge watched it. I watched 5 episodes one day and I watched 5 next episodes the next day. And I almost went to Canada to get euthanized.
yeah, I can see that. You're just miserable, sick, and then watching, you're like, hey, this is like, 4DX. I'm living the experience.
Yeah, it's not like an
Uh,
uplifting story. But
yeah.
but
So
we
we'll
should
talk
definitely
about
deep dive it. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. But deep diving, I think we got a couple of things to talk about here as we talk about franchise fatigue.
I find myself growing fatigued, Doctor.
So which one gets the treatment first? Where are we
Well,
going first?
I say let's do Star Trek first.
Yeah, I agree.
Because I think it's a different type of fatigue.
Star Trek?
No. Is that what we're going to talk about? Or were you talking about something else?
We talked about Star Trek in the last episode.
Did we? It's been so
Yes.
long.
Once you left, I know.
Well, Matt agreed, so he didn't remember either.
Wait a minute. We went over Star Trek?
We did.
Man, I'm so
This
fatigued.
next episode, we'll be talking about dementia, early onset dementia in people in their early 50s and late 40s.
I'm almost mid.
I would encourage Matt and Mike to go back and listen to our first fatigued episode, and where we do in fact talk about Star Trek.
Franchise fatigue. Mike and Jared and Matt were talking about.
Yes, we did talk about Star Trek.
What was the I know the big one. What was the other one?
We were going to talk about Star Wars and the MCU.
Yeah, I remember now.
Well, it's
I
funny because
remember.
they kind of both almost go hand in hand.
They do. They have a very similar trajectory,
Well,
a
let's
very
start with-
similar path.
Let's start with
MCU?
Okay, MCU's fine. Go ahead. Just
The
keep going.
MCU.
My ideas are terrible.
Pretty soon, Mike's going to be like, hey, why don't we circle back to Godzilla? We haven't talked about Godzilla yet.
We watched Monarch.
Mike. So, okay, the MCU. Now, I was thinking about this earlier today, and it seems hard to believe there was a time when there was one Marvel movie a year. Well, you think about 2008, that's when Iron Man was released.
Well, let's go before that. 'Cause
Okay.
Marvel had not a great reputation for quite a while. Now, before the MCU started, they had come along. But Marvel would, like when I was in high school, Marvel was kind of a joke because all their movies went straight to video. Captain
Yep.
America, Fantastic Four was never even released.
Correct.
What else did they
The
have?
X-Men cartoon was good though.
I didn't watch that.
Well, which they're
anyway-
re-releasing, by the way. If you saw that on Netflix, there's a whole new one coming out.
Yeah,
The-
the creator got fired or something. Anyway, go ahead.
I did see that. Yes, you're right. The Marvel films were not held in very high esteem.
I like Blade. Blade was good.
Was
I
that
think-
before X-Men? I think it was.
Blade was 98.
Because I remember I borrowed that from Jared. I was homesick and I had borrowed it. I had no
He had shingles
interest.
again.
No, I was just sick. We were living in Nashville.
Yep.
And I remember watching it and I was really surprised by how much I really liked it. I liked it a lot.
Yeah, the first two Blade movies are a lot of fun.
And then was X-Men and Spider-Man.
X-Men came out in 2000.
Now, remember that trailer came out? That first trailer came out, looked like hot garbage.
Yes, it looked like complete trash. I remember we talked about this when we both worked at Shop and Home, and I was like, it looked like a made-for-television movie.
Yeah, it looked awful.
And people were just crapping all over it. And then the movie came out, and people quite enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was really surprising.
And it sort of set, actually, it course-corrected a little bit for Marvel properties.
Well, then X-Men 2 came out, and it was just, I remember just being completely blown away when I saw it in the theater.
Yeah. And
who was the
concurrently with
what was
this,
the premise of
you had
X-Men
the
2 again? I haven't seen that in so long.
X-Men 2 is good. I really enjoy
Which one was
X-Men
that?
2.
Which one was that about?
It almost makes you forget it was made by a pedophile.
Yeah, that's true. X-Men 2 was when what the heck happened in X-Men 2?
It was the one with the mutants. Oh, it was the one where Xavier got captured.
Oh yeah, and
Right.
and Jean Grey she died at the end of it. She
Yeah,
got
that was
drowned.
good.
Um,
I like that one.
so and then you had, of course, the Sam Raimi Spider-Man films coming out during this time as
Same
well.
thing. The first one was good. The second one was amazing.
And the third one, it's funny. Blade, X-Men, and Spider-Man.
Oh, they couldn't land it.
They sort of all went off cliffs.
Yeah,
I would say the least worst of the three would. I actually can watch X-Men 3 and not hate it.
Yeah,
It's not great. It's kind of silly, but Spider-Man 3, this is a lot of problems.
Yeah.
But Blade 3 is just so terrible.
Oh no, it's just ridiculous.
yeah, it is not very good.
And you had some Hulk movies that came out.
Oh boy,
Gosh, I forgot about that.
2003, I think.
I saw that with Jared. I was supposed to be studying for a test, and I went to see that
Eric
piece
Bana?
of garbage.
Yeah, I remember that's one of my fondest movie memories is sitting in the theater with Mike. And
I remember when they
we
showed
just
the
thought
Hulk
we were
dogs, and Jared was like, "Well, at first, I think neither one of us were saying anything because we were afraid the other person
was enjoying it.
And so there was a scene where he got whatever shocked by the gamma or whatever, and he was sitting in the hospital, and he goes, "Where am I?" And I leaned over to Jared and I said, "You're in a bad movie." And from that point on,
Yeah, it was open season on the Hulk. It was like, man, what is this pile of crap? And so this was the early 2000s, and so we finally get to, and you know, they keep at this point, I think after Spider-Man 3, which was Spider-Man 3 was 2007. That was the last of like the non-MCU movies to be released before Iron Man. And so in 2008, Iron Man comes out. And that same summer, The Incredible Hulk comes out. And they both feature, I mean, Robert Downey Jr. is in both of those movies, and it's the first sort of inkling of what Marvel Studios was trying to do.
Yeah, would tie them all together.
Yeah, and it was actually quite revolutionary because the Spider-Man movies and the X-Men movies were from different studios. Same with the Hulk. There was never going to be any crossover there. But, all of a sudden now you have Marvel Studios, which was its own entity at that point, able to cross some of these characters over. And I saw Mike's face with his muted cough or sneeze or whatever that was. It made me laugh.
I cannot shake this cough. I can't get rid of it. Stupid pollen. Anyway, go ahead.
But anyway, and this was pre Disney Marvel, because if you remember at the beginning of Iron Man, it is a Paramount movie, and The Incredible Hulk is a Universal movie, and Marvel Studios was partnering with these larger distributors at that time.
Well, they mainly were partnering with Paramount.
Yes.
Hulk is still to this day owned by Universal. It's kind of like on lease.
And yeah, some of these licensing agreements that Marvel made are still haunting them to this day. Like, that's why they don't have rights to make a Spider-Man movie on their own.
Right.
That's why they can't make a Hulk movie, because Universal still owns those rights. And of course, they bought 20th Century Fox, so that's no longer a barrier to X-Men. But the thing was, back then, you had those two movies in 2008 come out. And then it wasn't until 2010 that Iron Man 2 came out. And that sort of pace for what would come later seems like glacial. Like, what the heck? Because before long, in 2011, we got Thor, and we got Thor in the spring, and in the summer we got Captain America.
And
Now, I want.
not great movies though. Thor was
Well,
interesting, but not great.
I was looking forward to Iron Man, and I was looking forward to Hulk because I actually really like those characters a lot, and I really, really loved both those movies when they came out. And when I heard they were doing Thor and Captain America, those are two characters I could have cared less about, so I wasn't interested. I think the first Captain America movie is great. I love it.
Yeah, it's good.
I do too.
And I thought Thor was a blast. I thought Chris Hemsworth, and you had who played Loki? His name is
Tom Hiddleston.
I mean, and then Anthony Hopkins was great as Odin, and the movie just Thor and Captain America was like, I was like, okay, this could be going somewhere because I actually really liked those movies a lot.
I did too, and those were like the question marks for me.
Yeah,
because I was like, okay, well, they made Iron Man work with Robert Downey Jr., obviously, and the Hulk was already kind of a known quantity, and they did it pretty well. But you get to Thor, which is, up to this point, the Marvel films have been relatively grounded, and Thor is this mythical Norse god.
Kind of opened it up. You're right.
Yeah, they made it, but they made Thor a science fiction movie, which was perfect.
Almost like Masters of the Universe.
Yeah, and I thought Chris Hemsworth was very well cast. I mean, he's one of these guys who's going to be forever linked to that role. And then Captain America, you certainly had the potential to be a complete farce, like just depending on how it was handled. But setting it in the 1940s and setting it during World War II, and bringing all those sort of retro elements to it, like making it a superhero movie set in the Second World War with all these like retro Buck Rogers kind of, Hydra had all these, Flash Gordon type, guns, and I thought it just worked really well.
And Captain America was the first of the MCU movies to really kind of like open it up cinematically and story wise. I mean, like everything else was kind of close and encapsulated, and Captain America was just a big, sprawling expanse of a story, which was very well told and very well done.
It was picking up. I mean, it picked up the beginning of Captain America picks up in Norway when they're looking for, this stuff that you learned about in Thor. So at this point, they're definitely laying track.
Yeah.
And it feels like it's going somewhere. You feel like you're watching a mini series. And then, of course, in 2012 came the Avengers.
Which that was, I think, what clinched it.
Yes.
That's when it was like, we've got it.
Yeah, they're in.
And I think from that point on, I was excited for every single Marvel movie that came out. I enjoyed every single Marvel movie that came out. I mean, some were better than the others, but there wasn't like in that time period, there was not one that I was dissatisfied with.
Like a just a real stinker.
I will say, with the exception of maybe the second Avengers movie, which I didn't love. I don't know, there's something about it that
I didn't hate it.
I think it's it works better now
yes.
within the context of the whole story. Now when I watch it, it works. It fits like a piece of the puzzle. I think before it was kind of like, I don't think it was the strongest entry at the time, but I think it works.
No, and I think you're right. But I think subsequently, Civil War makes Age of Ultron better.
I love Civil
War.
Yeah.
Yes, that's exactly right, because the consequences of what happened, of the repercussions of what trigger is the catalyst for that movie, and Civil War is fantastic.
And this is really where Marvel's firing on all cylinders. Like, because at this point you've already had Winter Soldier, which is a classic.
Oh my gosh, that was unbelievable.
So right after Avengers came Iron Man 3, which is sort of like a redheaded stepchild, but I think Iron Man 3 is a lot of fun to watch.
I've seen people diss on that movie, and I love Iron Man 3. I think Iron Man 3 is
Yeah,
fantastic.
like that had the whole twist with the Mandarin
which
and
people pissed people off, and I
But-
thought that was awesome.
yeah, when it was hilarious when Ben Kingsley's walking out of that bathroom going, "Oh my God, oh help me, it's so terrible."
I thought Iron Man 3 was better than Iron Man 2, personally.
Yes,
So
yeah. Despite Iron Man 2 had Sam Rockwell, who was brilliant.
he was awesome, but I mean, I think it was a better movie.
No, Iron Man 3 is better than Iron Man 2, without question. But it's interesting now because you're post Avengers. So every Marvel film now is sort of having to look back and at the events of the Avengers. And that's what Iron Man 3 did.
But what
And
they
it-
were really good at doing was they did that while at the same time making movies that stood on their own.
Correct. Exactly. A lot of people crap on Dark World. I don't think Dark World is great, but it's a great Loki movie.
Yes.
Like Loki steals the movie.
Well, if you look at the 3 Thor movies, including Avengers, you've got a great arc there. A great arc of
for Loki.
films. Well, for both characters,
Well,
Thor and Loki. You
true.
can't have one without the other.
Yeah. Because, Loki, of course, is the antagonist in the Avengers.
And then you have to include Endgame or in the one before that.
Infinity War.
Infinity War, yeah, you have to include.
But I mean, even when you go into Thor Ragnarok before.
Oh yeah, of course.
Before the Infinity War. I mean, I think Thor Ragnarok was I think it's probably my favorite MCU movie to date.
Ragnarok is fantastic.
I love Ragnarok.
But see, another thing Marvel was doing really well was they were bringing in this unexpected talent. Like I remember when Winter Soldier came out, and they're like, I was like, the Russo brothers, who's that? And like, they directed episodes of Community. Well, that doesn't seem right. And then I saw the movie, and I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
But I mean,
exactly.
Even like random, like I never read the comics growing up, so I was kind of new, which I'm thankful for in a lot of ways.
Me too. I agree with that.
Like new to some characters, like the Guardians of the Galaxy. To me, I'd never heard of. I'm completely like whoever this is, and I'm like, well, let's see what Marvel's doing. And that trilogy wound up being fantastic.
I never saw the third one.
Oh, I love the third one.
The third one is good, despite it being modern. You say modern Marvel. I would say post fatigue Marvel.
Yeah.
Like I said it to you guys when I saw Guardians 3, I texted you guys and said, "Hey, for 2 hours the MCU was good again."
Yeah, you're right.
And
well, I remember when the first one was coming out, Jared goes, "I think this was going to be Marvel's first stumble."
Yeah, because you're thinking about the talking tree and a raccoon. What is this crap?
But to that point, it seemed impossible for Marvel to stay on a roll. So every movie you're waiting to be the first dud.
Yes, and that's the thing. It's like it's not something that ever happened. I can watch pretty much still every Marvel film from Iron Man to Spider-Man No Way Home. And it's pretty much a winning streak.
Even like at the time, even Captain Marvel, when it came out, I didn't hate it. Now, it was definitely my least favorite of all of them, without a doubt.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember coming out and going, well, I didn't hate it. I mean, I really didn't hate it. I just was really very lukewarm to it.
What carried Captain Marvel for me was Samuel Jackson. I thought that was I thought it was a good Nick Fury movie.
Yeah, it was.
And so something happened about the time Disney Plus came into the picture.
The Disney effect.
Now, keep in mind, Marvel had owned Disney since, I think, I don't know, one of the early Iron Man films was the first of the Disney era. They bought Marvel in 2009, I think. And for a good, I don't know, almost 10 years, they had they showed restraint. And restraint in, I guess, but you got to remember, as we started going through these Avengers movies, we were getting more Marvel movies every year. But at the time, I think we were all like, these were still movies that they were events. These were movies we were going to the theater to go and watch.
I did not miss a single Marvel movie.
Yeah, me neither. They all, like we said, from Iron Man to past Endgame, they were solid. But then the cracks started to appear. Now, I'll tell you now, I enjoyed WandaVision.
I did too.
I thought
I did too.
WandaVision was a very unique. It was something totally different, and I thought it worked.
Yeah, I agree. Well, before we get into that, when Disney Plus started, I was super excited about they released the list of all these shows they were doing.
Yeah.
And I was excited. I was there. I was all in for all of this. I think this was right after either Endgame or Homecoming.
Yeah, it was around that.
Or no, not No Way Home. No Way Home was after Endgame. And no, not No Way Home.
It was Far From Home.
Far From Home. Okay. So I was all in. I was bring it. I was excited for every single show they listed. Go ahead.
Okay. So we had WandaVision, which I thought was good. I'm not sure what the next one was.
Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Oh yeah, that's okay. The first episode, I was like, "Oh, this is interesting." I mean, okay, it's action heavy.
Didn't watch it.
And okay, well, it just completely it went off the rails. Like it started making no sense. People were doing things that defied all logic. It was a poorly written show.
It got messagey.
It got very messagey.
Yeah.
And it's like you're starting to turn this now look, you look at, Sam from the movies, the Falcon, right?
Great character in the movies.
The Sam from the movies is not the Sam in this TV show.
Is that right?
He starts to have, and look, I'm sitting here, I'm a white guy, right? But they've turned him into someone with a big chip on his shoulder who has problems with everything. And I'm not even saying that's out of line for a black character, but it's not his character.
No.
Yeah.
And it had not been his character. He had a chip on it. That's how he was written. You start to change the characters in this show. That was a problem. Another was who is the villain in this piece? You had all these super soldier like kids running around, and for every super soldier we've seen, it's physically transformed them somehow.
That's the role of diminishing returns. As far as whenever someone became a super soldier in the movies, it was like a very painful, arduous process. Now you've just got them like injecting themselves, and they're super soldiers,
and each of them are 140 pounds, soaking wet, but they've got all of a sudden superpowers, and it turned into this very like it's at a certain point it's not fun to watch, and that's how Falcon and Winter Soldier became to me.
Yeah, and I remember, I don't know, 5 or 6.
Is that all it had? The 5 or 6?
Yeah,
episodes?
it was one of those short ones.
I mean, I remember the last episode I was watching it. I was like, I have no idea what's going on, and I don't care. I just don't care.
Correct. What were you saying, Matt? Sorry, we stepped on you there.
No, sorry. I was just thinking back. I was thinking back to a show that started kind of before Disney Plus even, was Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which I really enjoyed immensely.
That was a show that had a very slow start, but it turned around and got really very good.
But it kind of fell down for me. Like I got to a point where the show just was the show took a turn. I thought it was just getting stupid. But for a while, it was strong. It was like a really good. I was like, I look forward to each episode, and
I never
Well,
watched the last season.
there
and
was a
it-
time when it kind of disconnected from the
Yeah.
movies
Yeah.
on by necessity, because the TV side and the movie side weren't talking to each other. And when all of a sudden in Infinity War you kill half the population, that's not addressed in the show whatsoever. They just don't address it.
Well, they shot him into space.
They did put them in space. Now, I did not watch the last half of the last season, but I did hear that they sort of, did some hand waving and said, "Oh, like the last season of Agents of Shield happened in some sort of pocket universe where nothing from
and that's
the
what I'm
Marvel
talking about. It's like it's not worth like. Here's a show. It started. Mike said it right. It would start a little bit slow, but you gave it a chance, and it turned out to be pretty fun to watch, but not good enough to finish. No, I mean that's kind of how the MCU is feeling for me these days. There's
At that point, I'm not feeling any sort of fatigue. I'm just
no, not back then.
But I have to be honest, I really got into Agents of Shield. I mean, I
did
was
too.
really into it. When they did the Construct, that had one of the best episodes I've seen on TV.
It was it had great writing for a long time, and then it just kind of jumped the shark a bit.
Well, they were doing the super long breaks between seasons, and I just fell behind. But anyway, back to Disney Plus.
We'll jump back in.
After Winter Soldier, because Red Falcon, the thing that really bothered me about Winter Soldier, Red Falcon, is the characters did full circle. They didn't. The show ended where they started, so it made the whole thing pointless.
Yes.
Was Loki next in that lineup?
Was it? I think it was Loki.
I actually liked Loki.
I watched Loki, and I liked Loki.
Loki, for me, when him and Owen
Sylvie?
Wilson together, I liked the show.
Mhm.
Once they separated them two, I hated it. I hated that character, the female Loki. I hated it. I
haven't watched season 2
and then
yet.
I hated Kang. I hated the guy's performance as Kang. I just hated it.
Okay.
Once him and Owen Wilson split up, because them two together were great.
They were.
Well, and I'll say, I stuck with Loki, and I watched season 2, and I enjoyed season 2.
You told me that. You said I should.
Yeah, I wouldn't probably force. I wouldn't force it on Mike, but if you enjoyed season 1, Matt, then you would probably like season 2.
Yeah.
And they got Ke-Huy Quan in season 2, and he's great. And the story's kind of bonkers, and it also isn't really addressing much of the rest of the MCU. It's kind of contained in this little sci-fi world they've made. So I did enjoy that.
Well, what came after Loki was What If, which was actually really good.
Now, I haven't watched season 2.
I haven't watched season 2, but
I
I
did
like
watch
season 1.
Yeah, season 1 was good. All I remember is like Chris Hemsworth as Thor being like this party god.
Yeah.
Which I thought was hilarious.
I thought they even made the Marvel zombies work, which should have been totally stupid.
Yeah, What If season 1 was fun, but I think at this point is where I was like I just wasn't keeping up with it anymore.
Well, I must say, as far as fatigue goes, I'm trying to figure out what came out theatrically. So theatrically, the movies were still pretty good. I like Shang-Chi. I was surprised that I liked Shang-Chi.
Mm-hmm.
Eternals, I did not like. I almost fell asleep in the theater.
Eternals was the breaking point.
Not for me. I was still hanging with it because I saw Hawkeye. I enjoyed Hawkeye.
No, Hawkeye was. Oh, that's another show, which I enjoyed Hawkeye.
But then I think we started getting, what was that, 2021? What was coming out in the theater?
The new Ant-Man came out then?
I never saw the
that.
new.
That wasn't Quantum Mania. It was Love and Thunder. which
was garbage.
I didn't see it yet. I haven't seen it.
Love and Thunder to me was like watching a Naked Gun version of
Was it that bad?
the
It
Marvel
was
universe.
terrible. It was awful.
And it was 100% Taika Waititi just basically trolling Marvel and trolling the audience. He's like, you could almost sense like, I don't want to be doing this. I'm doing this because I have to. So I'm going to make this big ball of garbage, and then you can release it or not. I don't really care.
Right.
Yeah, I try to make myself, I turn myself into knots thinking, well, maybe I laughed a couple of times during the movie, but I've never rewatched it, never had I saw it in the theater, and that's the last I saw it.
Yeah.
And if you would have told me, 5 years ago that, I'd say a Taika Waititi Thor movie was terrible, I would have laughed in your face because Ragnarok is so good.
Mhm.
Love and Thunder, for me, I did not. Eternals was terrible, and I was like, okay, well, that nobody knows who those people are, and we got Thor coming now. Thor's a legacy guy, so hey, let's go Thor. And I saw Thor, and I was like, man, what is going on over there? And this is the time with the movies and the shows. It is a sausage factory.
Right.
They are just cranking them
They had,
out.
right before Love and Thunder, they put out the Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness.
Okay, I do want to address that, but before I do, I want to go to the next. I think the breaking point for me as far as Marvel was Moon Knight, because I was like, man, I was really looking forward to it. I thought the trailers looked really good. I thought the first episode of Moon Knight was great,
Mhm.
and then after that,
Like,
I hated it.
I did not know. I mean, I just wasn't invested enough to have strong feelings
That's
about
just
it. I
it.
was like,
I didn't
I
care enough.
want to care about what's going on, but it's so ridiculous and crazy that I don't know what's happening.
I mean, this are deep cut shows for people who are like super fans of the comics because the trailer didn't draw me in and I was an MCU fan. I liked the movies, but I wasn't interested enough from what they were showing me to be like, I'm going to spend my time watching this. I was like, nope,
Yeah.
didn't even care. Now, if I had grown up reading the comics, I might have been interested, but like they were really banking on two things: one, people who knew what the character was, and
Mhm.
then two, hoping that they had enough trust in their brand equity with the people that they could just put anything out and people would watch it, which was
Yeah.
not the case.
But Moon Knight's just went totally off the rails.
Who was the star in Moon Knight? Who started it?
Oscar
Isaac. And then after that, Miss Marvel, which I heard was okay. I had no interest in watching it.
Yes, strangely enough, me and Terry started watching that, and we're like, "Hey, first episode wasn't bad," and we binged like 4 episodes because they were short; they were like 30 minutes. And Miss Marvel was, it, I gotta say, I would give it a B. I did not dislike Miss Marvel at all. I mean, it was interesting, it was funny, but
Well, I will say the next show was probably my final.
it's got to be She-Hulk.
I never watched a single episode of She-Hulk, but I saw enough stuff on that show about that show that was like, nope, I'm done.
The pot had boiled over at that
I'm
point.
done with Marvel.
Well,
Not only is it terrible, Marvel obviously hates my guts.
well, I watched the first episode, and I was like, okay. But this was, of course, they were releasing this weekly, and I never went back. In the first episode, they started doing the fourth wall breaking stuff, which really started to bother me. I'm like, as goofy and crappy as the MCU had gotten, they did not break the fourth wall. They weren't talking right at the camera, and I know that's what they did in the She-Hulk comic. I understand that, but then if that's the case, then don't then just do the filmed version differently. I don't know, but yeah, the She-Hulk. The more I saw, like you guys, it was like, man, this doesn't look like something I'd enjoy. So I just didn't tune in.
Yep.
And apparently neither did a lot of people.
I mean,
Disney
it's-
Plus and their streaming service was in big trouble. There was a lot of money put in a lot of these shows that just weren't getting, the viewership. It was tough. And when we get to it, we'll talk about the Star Wars problem is also in this regard. But it's too many cooks in the
problem,
kitchen, and it's the classic story of these big franchise
well,
properties, right? Where they feel that no matter what they do, they've got their core fan base that will always follow them. Now they can completely do a 180, focus on getting like young girls as an audience now, and forget the core audience of like young men and men who like comic books and movies like this. Let's just focus on the women now and bring them on because our core audience is going to go with us no matter what we do. So focus on a completely different sect of the demographic, and then they'll be part of us too, which never works. And we've seen that time
blew up
after
in their
time.
face.
that's where I go to where they hate us. And we can tell by the writers because unfortunately they let the writers do interviews and the writers say everything they're thinking. And you're like, not only is it terrible, but I don't want to support anything these idiots are making. Like, and they don't even know what they're doing. They're just
I think it's the nature of the beast, right? You have so much success, then you get a lot of cooks in the kitchen, a lot of executives in these giant corporations become heavily involved, and it becomes political, and then it just doesn't become a creative endeavor; it becomes a political endeavor.
Well, and there's also
that's what happens. And
greed. Greed is what is destroying these franchises.
But it will clear out. I mean, as we're seeing now, we're starting to see a little bit of a
these
rubber
movies
band
are
effect,
bombing hard now.
and they are. And what does that do?
Pumping the brakes.
Money talks, and money also fires people. And when you don't have money, you fire the people that are losing you money. And slowly but surely, you will start to see these people weeded out, and you'll get some very good. I mean, look, I'll say Wolverine.
I don't know, man.
I'll say Wolverine is a good example.
Like they're going through full course.
Like Logan is a perfect example. Logan came out. When did Logan come out? Like 3 years ago?
2017.
Was it that long ago? Holy God.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a little mixed about them bringing back Wolverine because Logan was such a great.
Well, I mean, you got to look at the property he's coming back in. It's a goofy property anyway. But I mean, there is hope where you get these people cycled out of the cooks in the kitchen syndrome. You'll lose executives that are pushing politics in movies, and you'll get a little more of the creative juices back in. That's what happens, right? Things get too big, it falls over, the forest burns down, and then you start to get new growth coming up. And the new growth will be interesting, but it takes a process. And we've seen this in a lot of properties. And
I just don't think I almost don't think it's salvageable at this point.
I mean, I think
they're going
salvageable. You just have to like
keep pumping,
break it off, and you have to move it
Well,
around a bit.
You can, to put it very bluntly, you can pick the peanuts out of the turd, because I still think that Marvel Studios is capable of making good stuff. And like I said, Loki season 2, I've enjoyed things they've made in the past year or so. Now, by and large, I haven't, but so I'm at a point where if it looks interesting to me, then I will give it a shot. I don't know if I'm like Mike, where I can just say, nope, I'm done. I'm finished.
I'm done.
Mike,
I'm
can
totally
walk
fatigued.
Away. His fatigue is real. My fatigue is, sort of light drowsiness.
I'm in full fatigue mode with Marvel. I'm not invested or watching any of it right
but
now.
I don't feel the need with Marvel to watch everything anymore.
Yeah, because that's the difference. Is back then. What are there's shorts on the Blu-ray? Well, I've got to watch the shorts. Right. The shorts fill in the cracks between the movies.
Now, but I'm not there anymore. But I am still. I will give anything a shot if it looks interesting to me. And just because I didn't watch She-Hulk and I didn't watch, What If season 2 and I didn't watch Echo, then that doesn't mean that I probably am not going to give, Loki season 2 a shot, which I did and I ended up liking. So for me, I can still go and enjoy those earlier stories, those earlier movies.
Yeah. Well, that's Go ahead.
Because if you look at it, if it starts with Iron Man and ends with No Way Home, then that's a pretty solid 30 something hours of, well, hell, probably more than that, probably more like 60 or 70 something hours of just great action adventure comic book uh, filmmaking. Um, I think, and we can circle around back to this with Star Wars, but the killer here is greed and the sausage factory. It is
I'm going to add hiring hacks. I mean, they're hiring people that have no bit. Back to when I said, they hired the Russos. They brought in what TD. They were bringing all Kenneth Branagh, Joe Johnston. They were bringing all this talent in, but now they're bringing in people who their goal is to alter it for a new audience that isn't really that interested in it as their core audience who they've left behind.
Yeah. Well, I think it goes back to greed because the hacks are cheap. Kenneth Branagh's not cheap. The Russos are no longer cheap. And once you have to feed a machine to keep it running, that's the killer of creativity.
I mean, you're right. Once greed takes over, once you start having to check boxes for demographics, you've reached the point where you've gone too far. You've gone. It's a bridge too far to come back, and your audience will start to disappear on you.
And they feel betrayed. There's a betray. You have to earn their trust back.
I mean, if you're checking the boxes and saying, "Is this box checked now?" Where we miss? Well, check that box for the next movie. I mean, you've reached a problem. You've reached a creative problem, and it's become a corporate problem, and the franchise is sinking.
So I've grown fatigued of bad Marvel crap. If you want to make good Marvel crap again, good Marvel crap, good Marvel, then yeah. But I think I'm sort of with Matt. I'm sort of split between you guys and your opinions. I'm seeing that they're recognizing there's a problem.
Well,
you can't release the Marvels and not think there's a problem.
Well, obviously there's a problem because they re-edited that thing about 50 million times. Now, the only sign that I would say that there's clearly a self-awareness is Daredevil.
They reshot the whole series.
Apparently, the first 3 episodes, he didn't even have the costume on. So they reviewed the episodes and they went,
"You think that's a problem?"
Nope. And they fired him. They rehired the old characters, and it's no longer a reboot. It is a continuation.
It's a sequel.
Now, going back, the Netflix series of those shows on there, Daredevil was the only one worth a darn. Those other shows sucked. Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, Iron Fist, The Defenders was terrible. Daredevil was the jewel in that crown. But the fact that someone is like, hey, guys, we can't do this anymore. We need to make something that's good.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it will be good, but I might actually try to check that out depending on what kind of feedback I hear. But they're bringing back Bullseye, who I thought that he was a great villain in the 3rd season. I mean,
well, I've seen the pictures of John Bernthal as the Punisher and
the Punisher show. Well, I mean, that was another pile of garbage. Jeez Louise.
I kind of like the Punisher show personally.
Though, Jared, I think you have a good thought. You sparked a good thought. It's the fact that the great thing about the MCU is that there's so many pieces that I don't know about because I didn't read the comics. And like I said, Guardians of the Galaxy to me is a perfect example. No clue when that came out. I thought, what ridiculousness are they putting out? And it was a home run. So Marvel Studios can put out great stuff. And if they get behind the right property, obscure or not, it doesn't have to be an Iron Man. It doesn't have to be a Thor. It could be obscure and be great. So, they can reset. They can hit the reset button anytime they want because they've got the right talent and they know how to make movies. They just have to pick the right property and make and craft a good movie. And they know how to do that. They just have to remember to go back and do it the right way.
Or is it possible Robert Downey Jr. was the magic ingredient?
It could be. Maybe he was the magic sauce for the whole thing. Who knows? Could be.
So I want to say, with all things considered, where for you, like if you were to do like a rewatch of the entire of the Marvel MCU, what would you include and where would you stop? Does that make sense?
For me,
Starting with Iron Man, if you were to do a watch through, where would you stop and what would you include? And where would you say it might like it's a good stopping point for you?
I might go from Iron Man to including all the 3 Spider-Man movies. And then it would end for me with Loki season 2. But I would not include, the movies would stop with Spider-Man, and then Guardians of the Galaxy Part 3 is in there as well. I don't think you need to watch the Marvels or the Eternals or Love and Thunder or Quantumania, which is another boil on the ass of I don't know. Quantumania is a horrible movie.
I still haven't seen it.
It's absolutely unforgivably terrible. I'd include, like I said, the Spider-Man movies, the last Guardians movie, and I'd get WandaVision in there, and then the 2 seasons of Loki, and I'd probably stop.
That probably sounds about what I'd say too. I haven't seen WandaVision or season 2 Loki, but that's about right.
I think for me is I'd go because Black Widow was fine. I thought the third act was kind of a mess, but overall, I thought it was entertaining enough to not hate.
It was weird though. It was like this middle of, it's like a prequel to Infinity War, and it fits in like right after Civil War, and it's like a movie that was made like 5 years too late.
Too late, yeah.
Well, the reason I would go all the way up to Shang-Chi. I'd skip Eternals, and I'd Spider-Man No Way Home, of course. And I think the last movie I would include was the Doctor Strange movie, which I didn't hate. But the thing I like about Doctor Strange is it's pretty much a sequel to WandaVision.
Yeah.
And What If is, I feel like that's a cool little WandaVision, What If, and the last Doctor Strange kind of tell like a story. And I think that's where I would stop.
Well, I think that's where we probably are going to stop today.
Yeah,
because
we sure spent a lot of time on
the
Star
MCU
Wars.
has fatigued me.
So this will be a trilogy, unless we come back and you start the next episode saying, "So what about Marvel? We need to talk about Marvel, both of you," and I'll be like, "Okay."
It'd be kind of interesting for us to have talked about Star Trek again and see what we said the second time around.
Oh man. Okay, so yeah, we'll hit the pause button here, and we'll pick up with part 3. Star Wars is coming. We've saved the biggest for the last. So, but anyway,
it'll be a doozy. I think that's a good one to conclude on because I think
I do too.
There's more invested in that than anything that we.
Yeah, I think so, and I think Mike's probably going to be the angriest of the 3 of us, which is always funny.
I can't wait.
When Mike gets going.
Can't wait.
So we're gonna pause it here. We're gonna wrap it up. We hope you're not fatigued of the hyperspace though, because we're still rolling on. We got new shows coming out. I mean, we're talking about Star Wars next episode, but hey, we've talked about Star Wars. Looking at some old Clone Wars episodes. That episode is out now, and me and Mike, we've got another fun Star Trek commentary on the way for you. And listen, just all kinds of stuff. And we don't just talk about stuff we're tired of. We talk about stuff that we enjoy. So, gang, come back here with us next time, and we'll see if you're fatigued or not.
I find myself growing fatigued, Doctor.
You know you can't live without this content, so subscribe to The Hyperspace, podcasting in the 25th century. Follow us on social media, leave us a review, and join us here next time as we take you into the 25th century.